Will your 30-year-old self like the tattoo your 20-year-old self picked? You will never reach true originality unless you learn the basics and increase your knowledge. When did time start?
Hello everyone, welcome back to the last part of Let's Play D4. We've been exploring the airplane, trying to find where Derek took Antonio Zapatero, and trying to find Philip Cheney, who was apparently hot in pursuit after them. And we've also been trying to satisfy the curiosity of Olivia Jones, who has just forgotten all kinds of things, and we have been trying to get her to remember. But I think now we finally have everything that we need. We're going to get past these little pieces of trivia that Olivia Jones just needs to know. And we're going to get down to the matter at hand, and that is solving this case and figuring out what happened. What happened to Antonio Zapatero? Why did Derek Buchanan apparently abduct him and take him underneath the plane? And what happened to Philip Cheney as he was in pursuit? Alright, yep, here we are. Alright, first things first. Olivia.
Is something the matter?
Here you go. Here's how you make good coffee.
A cafe au lait is drip coffee and milk. A cafe latte is espresso and milk. That's the cold, hard truth.
Right. I guess everyone knows that. I still get them mixed up, though. Maybe because they both have milk in them. Wait, then what's a cappuccino?
It's a cafe latte with foamy milk.
Oh, is that so?
I figured it'd ask me that, so I checked up on that too.
Thank you for all your help. It really feels like I've cleared out the cobwebs.
Glad to hear it. And I got to learn that you joined the DEA due to your admiration for 007.
Hey, you aren't going to tease me about that, are you?
We wouldn't dream of it. After all, David has a whole lot of stuff that he could be teased for as well. But that's not important. What is important is that we have satisfied Olivia's curiosity, we have answered all the questions, and now, let's try to get past this door. If you remember, this door over here, it can't be opened because there's no power, so we're going to try to restore the power to this door.
Looks like the power has been restored to this section. Olivia, why is the DEA going after real blood? There are plenty of other drugs causing issues on a national scale.
You're right. There are many other drugs we need to go after, but somehow, real blood feels different from those. It feels more twisted, more dangerous than something just being used as a source of income. We've found a lot of strange corpses and incidents related to real blood. People with all their skin reversed, drowned in the absence of water.
Or bodies with all the blood removed from their body.
You know something about real blood, don't you?
Maybe.
Alright, we got a clue, something about the DEA. Another one of these power generators over here. Let's see what we can do. I mean, I don't think it's really a suspicious thing that the DEA is going after real blood. It seems like a really dangerous drug after all. Much more dangerous than the normal kind of drugs that you might read about. It does seem to give people special powers after all, and you can't say that about too many drugs. I think this is pretty clean. Okay, there we go. Yeah, looking inside. Yep, sure. Let's just take that off. Just do that. We could just do that. Alright, so now this is a puzzle. We have to connect the power lines. You can see in the left middle, there is a glowing power line, and in the lower right, there's the other side of it. So we have to connect them, and in the upper right, it said moves 0 out of 6. So we have to do this in 6 moves. Also, we don't need to just connect the 2 ends, but rather we have to make it so power will flow through all 8 of these pieces. So how do we do this? Okay, so with each piece, we just want to move the piece that looks like it's going to connect to something. So this one right here does not look like it's going to be able to connect to the lower right, but this one could. So, okay, there we go. We put that there. This one, I mean, that one's pointing down, and so that the bottom one is not going to be able to connect to anything. This one, though, all 3 ends of it could connect to something. Let's put that there. And now there's only one we can move here. That's that. So now we could move this one, but that will not connect to the left side, the left connector. This one would. Okay, we've now connected the 2 ends, but we still need to get these other ones in there. This seems obvious for the middle piece because it has 4 ends. Yep, there we go, and that means we only need to move 1 left, and there it is. We did it.
The wires have been connected. That should restore power to this section.
Alright, now that we've done that, this door should be open, so let's go on through and see what we find.
I've got a good idea about the identity of that thing back there. But in that case, what's the Marshal playing at?
Just over 2 years ago, there was a detective who quit over a real blood murder. Sounds like he was forced out under suspicion of possibly killing his wife. The report also says he was critically injured, including some memory loss. What do you think this former detective is doing now?
What's your point?
Please, answer me.
I didn't kill her.
I knew it was you. You're the detective from that case. And that's why you've muscled in on this one. What are you after? Don't tell me. Revenge?
Listen.
Back off. I can't let you become any more involved in this.
Olivia, wait.
Hands up! Don't move. Place your hands behind your head and lie down on the ground. Lie down on the ground, now!
Olivia, get your head down! Ow! Damn it! Olivia?
I'm okay. Eagle calling Delta. Agent Cheney, please respond. Philip!
Oh no.
Go on ahead. I'll be right behind you.
Hurry! Hurry, hurry! Run, 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 run! Marshall, please, don't do anything stupid.
That's the stunt scene that I've never been able to get 100% on. Almost did it this time, but there was one that I messed up on. So we got a new clue. We can actually hear Antonio Zapatero in the distance, and he sounds like he's in pain. Olivia, back there, had cottoned on to who we are, but then there was a blast of electricity. We still don't know what that's about.
Let's get going.
And nothing we can do here. Or is there something we can do with this? Nothing will happen? We'll just be sad? Well, let's see.
What am I doing? I need to hurry up and find the marshal.
Nope, the fire extinguisher still does not do anything. Okay, let's head on and see what we find. Alright, that's not what we expected to find, but it looks like Roland Walken has appeared before us. And I guess we're going to have to speak with him if we want to get through.
Why such a scary face, Mr. Young?
Let me through here.
You really look quite dreadful. It reminds me of... Yes. When you were undercover agent David Young.
That's in the past.
How typical. Mr. Young. You weren't burned. However, sometimes those who play with fire do get scorched. You should take note of that.
Alright, we got some evidence, whatever that evidence was. And, Roland's just comfortable in there? Just all scooched up in there, is he? Well, let's see if he has anything else to say.
Being cramped up is also an experience.
I guess it is, but, what is Roland doing here?
What the hell are you doing here?
Isn't it obvious, Mr. Young? I'm watching over you.
Well, we know Roland's name, but we don't really know who he is. Not really, so that seems like a pretty good place to start.
Just who are you?
I am myself. Nothing more than that. I thought at least that much was obvious.
I guess I can't argue with that. What does he think about Olivia Jones? And please don't say that she is herself, too.
It's futile, Mr. Young. I highly doubt that she can see me. I can be seen by Mr. Young, but not by Miss Jones. I think you understand what that means.
Well, I guess we could make some guesses. But, for right now, we'll just leave it to say that it seems that no one else except David Young can actually see Roland Walken. At least we can assume that from what Duncan had said previously, that he seemingly could not see Roland either. Does Roland know anything about the Courier Rabbit?
Did the courier and the marshal come through here?
The answer is yes, Mr. Young. But if you are caught up only in what you can see in front of you, you'll fail to catch what is truly important.
Oh? And what is truly important, Mr. Walken? Can you tell us anything at all that's somewhat clear?
Why don't you just cut the crap and tell me everything?
If I did, would you believe me, Mr. Young? Those certainly don't sound like the words of a master detective.
So I guess this is one of those things where the truth is just something we can't handle right now. Maybe later. But what does David see?
4 people came through here, but if you looked at it from another way, you would see 3.
Mr. Young, what excellent deductive reasoning. It seems you really are seeing that which
4 people came through here, but if you looked at it another way, it was 3. Well, I mean, the people that came through here, we can assume were Derek, Antonio, and Philip. Those would be the 3. Maybe the 4th was the giant hulking figure we saw? I don't know. Regardless, what about these clovers? Well, we know what the clovers represent, and I think you know it's time to play some Clover Touch.
Clovers?
Yes. Clovers are integral to your memories of her,
How do you know that?
Mr. Young. I think you already know the answer to that. Now, reach out your hand. Remember their connection to her. Don't let your memory slip through your fingers.
All right, once again, we cannot let the memories of Peggy slip through our fingers. We're playing Clover Touch again. However, this time our clear target is 200 points. I mean, it's still not much different from the first time we played it, and we were only trying to get 100 points. Not much harder to get 200. However, once you play this on Unlimited, and you start to get way up there, yeah, it gets harder. You get more clovers, faster clovers, bigger clovers, and smaller clovers, which are the tough ones to really get. Right now, we just have these standard-sized clovers, and it's really not very difficult to get them all. Whoop! Didn't mean to get hit by that. That one almost got by me. Get some frozen clovers to double the points. And we are just about done with Clover Touch. And what does Mr. Roland Walken have to say to us now?
Just as I expected, Mr. Young. That's the gallant figure I wished to see you cut. I'm not sure you'd call it a reward, but I've placed a memory left by her in your house. That memory you, Mr. Young.
All right, Roland Walken has once again been in our house. We haven't invited him in there, but he keeps coming in and leaving us letters.
One of the memories is in my house. Just who is this man?
All right. Well, we could go down that hallway and we hear Antonio's voice, but... But I think we should go back and finish up anything that we have not yet seen in the apartment. Find the letter that Roland left for us, as well as see what else we might have yet to see in the apartment. We haven't looked at everything, because as usual, there is so much to look at. Alright, for one thing, we still do have one more lunch scene to see with Kaysen.
David, looking after yourself is part of your job.
And it's time to do that. Let's ask Kaysen for the last time. Oh, look at those textures in the background. How'd that happen? Well, let's ignore that for right now, and let's ask Kaysen if he has any food.
Of course. When have I ever not?
Well, let's have some.
Sure, no problem. Ooh, I'm gonna knock your socks off today.
Hey, I can't eat as much as you can.
Just shut up and chow down. Conquering your stomach is one of my goals in life. Remember how we talked about music players? Sounds like a lot of people use cell phones to listen to music now.
You mean smartphones?
Yeah, that's the gizmo. You can do the internet, photos, music, all at once. It's an all-in-one information terminal. But I don't like it.
Too small for bear paws, huh?
I'm too old to read all that little text.
Oh yeah, the screens always get so greasy, and the cool design makes it hard to hold.
Few of these, a couple of those, oh yeah. Yeah, I know. The slightest slip, and it breaks. Now a little this. Oh yeah. Old cell phones were so much better. So big and heavy. They really gave you something to hold on to. You had to extend the antenna before you used them, too. Oh, I love that ritual, let me tell you.
Just like a walkie-talkie. Yeah.
Exactly. That tough military feel they had was so cool. Simple things never let you down. These magic little boxes that do everything are just junk to me.
That's why I don't have a cell phone.
What?
I've got a landline in the house, and I just carry 50 cents with me when I'm out. Who needs a cell phone?
Let's try another little. You've made simplicity into an art form, Ogre. So, you've memorized all the numbers you need?
Of course not. I only need to call the BPD to get a hold of you.
And if I dial 911, I can reach you for free.
A former police officer shouldn't be abusing the system like that.
And that's the last lunch scene that we'll have with Forrest Kaysen. Let's take a look at Kaysen's last report about the arrival of Real Blood. Since 2004, perhaps due to the new narcotics unit, and perhaps due to the perpetrators fearing too much exposure, the rise of the Blood series has abruptly stalled. The special unit was established with great fanfare, but their investigation is then dragged on without achieving any significant results. While they have proven relatively effective against standard drug-based crimes, in regard to the lurking Blood series, they have acquired almost nothing, completely failing to eradicate the issue, and instead simply accruing data from day to day, uncovering and cataloging new strains numerous times a year, but nothing else. 2005. The dramatic fall in the number of samples and the biomedical problems presented by the analysis cause all university research teams in Boston to give up on unlocking the secrets of the drug. Even making use of cutting-edge technology, they were unable not only to replicate it, but also to simply understand the basic principles behind the narcotic. The final results ended up the same as those from BPD's own criminal science department. All scientists are unified in their high evaluation of the technology used to create the drug, but can leave behind no insight other than the results of their clinical trials. While the situation has not been resolved, it is definitely in a lull, and the special unit has reduced the scope of their Blood series investigation, taking it down to a single team of detectives. 2010. An anonymous tip led to top-secret information regarding the organization behind the Blood series. The special unit immediately established an investigation HQ, placing Detective as an undercover operative who met with via. The undercover infiltration was a success, and the investigation was underway. 2011. Detective, working undercover for the narcotics unit, was shot in the head by an unidentified intruder in his home. He survived, but in critical condition. The wife of the detective was found to have suffered an unnatural death, had all of the blood drained from her body. The strange extremity of this suggested that she was a Blood series user, but test results were negative. This incident has been attributed to retribution from the organization behind the drug. The boss of Detective from the same unit has acquired testimony via and furthermore is during the same year, new strains of the Blood series were also discovered. Version 27, which would later be named Real Blood, marked the appearance of a new drug, distinctly set apart from all others in the series, up until now. And so that's the last report that we'll get from Forrest Kaysen about Real Blood. An interesting thing about that document, it said that Peggy's death was apparently attributed not to the gunshot, but to all of the blood in her body being removed. So the gunshot was not what killed her? It sounded like that from that report. And it sounded like David was one of the few detectives working on Real Blood, and that they were perhaps getting close to the source of Real Blood, getting close to the organization that runs it, that distributes it, and that it's assumed that Peggy's death was retribution from that organization. Well, that's all we know, and that's all we will know, at least for now. Let's take a look at the rest of the apartment. After all, there's some stuff where we haven't seen yet. And, while we're here, we might as well put some music on. And, considering what we're wearing, considering this suit, it seems like there's really only one thing that's appropriate to put on right now. Even though there are so many tracks. And that's, the spy fiction tracks. Here's the main theme. Now, if you are familiar with the US version of Spy Fiction, this track might not sound familiar. That's because the main theme apparently was changed in the US version from this. This is the Japanese version, the original version. Can't imagine why they felt they had to change this music track, because maybe they felt it too strongly resembled a well-known theme? I don't know. But now it's here in D4. However, the unfortunate thing is that that means that the American main theme is not actually in this. Might remember this when we were fighting Enigma thugs. And the track where we're defending Alice Coleman as we are breaking her out of her prison. Just the general sneaking around music. Alright, let's go with this one. Now, we were taking a look around here before at the scrapbooks. I do think there is one thing that we didn't take a look at, and that there is... Hold on. There's a squirrel. I can push it. I pushed it. There's a letter. Kind of hard to see. Right there. One of Little Peggy's letters. This is the 9th one we've gotten. So, let's have a look at what that letter was.
David, are you trying to make my dad hate your guts, or does it just come naturally? I'm kidding, but geez, you really know how to pick a fight. He really does like you, David, even if you don't believe me when I say it. He even suggested you come over for dinner next week. By the way, it's usually polite to call your girlfriend's dad Mr. Oldman the first time you meet him, not just August. Little Peggy Oldman, April 20th, 2003.
It sounds like perhaps David and Peggy's father did not get along all that well. So I think we've seen all of the scrapbooks and such in this area. However, we did not take a look at what could be found in the bedroom, I believe. So let's head back there for one more look. Alright. Now I think if we lean over here, yeah, there's a gold credit right up there. Also an energy drink. Let's just take that. There's some new scrapbooks here that I don't think we've taken a look at. Or it looks like, yeah, there are 2 of them. Yeah. One of them about art. Let's see what it's about. Alright, this one is talking about the Galapagos of the Far East, Japan. Samurai, Shogun, Geisha, Fujiyami, Sushi, Teriyaki. All of these words are now a part of the English language, but all of them are originally Japanese. When we Westerners hear words like these, we feel a sense of oriental mystery, pumping our exotic fantasies of the land of the rising sun, half the world away. Located in the far east of Asia, a small island off the coast of the Eurasian continent, Japan is sometimes called the Galapagos of the Far East. This is because Japan has a tendency to create its own unique culture, specific only to Japan, such as the Japanese language and samurai warriors. This development, cut off from the rest of world, and also being an island, have led to parallels being drawn with the Galapagos. You might be surprised at just how many areas of life the unique approach taken by Japan has reached. Language, lifestyle, and culinary culture are a given, but cutting-edge technology, computing, the arts, education, public organizations, religion, entertainment, and even sexual behavior can all be said to have progressed down their own unique path. From the Japanese swords of ancient times to the smartphone 08 of today, everything is based on a different DNA from what you will find in the countries of the West. When you first visit Japan, you may well experience a feeling much like Charles Darwin did when he discovered the mysteries of life at the Galapagos, coming into contact, as you surely will, with the mysteries of the East. You could ride a train packed to 150% capacity, surrounded by suit-wearing salaryman drones. Finally climb off at your desired station to be welcomed by a fog of tobacco smoke. Escape from the bustle into a side street and find yourself surrounded by the teenagers they call Yankees. Look a little too intently at the high school student, operating her smartphone with one hand and steering her bike with the other, and have a housewife with her baby in the shopping basket blow a safety whistle at you. Cover a bowl of rice with fermented beans and then eat it with raw egg. Put on an anime t-shirt and take a stroll through the bright lights of the city. Check the weather forecast every day and always take an umbrella out if it's going to rain. Clean your car like it's your living room. Wear a mask even though you aren't sick. Complain about politics but never actually vote. Kill a whale and eat it. Okay, we're getting off track here. Whatever you encounter, there's no doubt that the Galapagos of the Far East Japan will practically overload your senses. If your interest have been piqued, your multiple interests, but you're still not convinced about the airplane part of the equation, why not pay a visit to the Museum of Fine Arts Boston? While you won't be able to experience being surrounded by salarymen, they do have a large selection of Japanese art, from Buddhist sculptures and calligraphy to scrolls, paintings, and modern art. Why not surround yourself in these works of art and get a taste of the distant Galapagos of the Far East? Advertisement. Galapagos of the Far East, Japan Special Exhibition. Now on. Alright, so basically, yeah, Japan's all different from wherever you come from. It's kind of what you would expect going pretty much any other country, right? Let's see what this entertainment and movie magazine has to tell us. Well, it's all about glass, of course. Glass windows that shatter amid a spray of bullets. Drinking glasses that smash during a rousing bar brawl. The stained glass ceiling that the protagonist gets thrown through. Or that shop window that the car crashes into. Smashing and shattering shards of glass are a vital part of every action movie. But just why do the movies love to break so much of the stuff? So much of it. There's a variety of reasons, of course. During a pitched gun battle, for example, shattering glass can help to highlight the danger of the situation. The sound of breaking glass and the resulting fragments stimulate the senses of the audience, while the tiny jagged pieces that rain down on the characters only place them in greater, heightened peril. On the other hand, scenes of jumping through glass place a variety of different meanings upon the shattering pain. It could be the appearance of an important new character, an escape from danger, or an encroaching terror. In all cases, glass shatters to provide loud noise and flying fragments. Sound and fragments. There are the two roles that glass plays so well in the movies. Yep, glass is so important in the movies, isn't it? And I think that's actually it for all of the scrapbooks. There's one more letter to go, but I think that's actually it for all the scrapbooks that we can read. You know, maybe we should take a look at this trophy. Not because we want to see our scores, but because, hey, there are some clovers coming off of that trophy.
I haven't held a hockey stick once since little Peggy died. Little Peggy.
If this one's a boy, I bet he'll be a hockey player. If she's a girl, maybe she can be a cheerleader, like I was. I just hope she'll find a husband who's as wonderful as you are. Oh, hey, listen to this, David. My father used to play hockey too, when he was younger. Can you imagine that? That stern, scholarly father of mine, playing hockey.
Little Peggy. All the men from around here either play hockey or sail yachts.
Well, that at least might have been something that that David and Peggy's father might have had in common. They were both hockey players. There's something here that wasn't here before. It's for cleaning. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, we can clean her bedroom. If we want. And we get some bonuses if we do that to our stamina and our life. And that can boost it past the maximum. If you saw that there. I actually have more stamina and life than I actually have in those meters. Exceeded 100%. So, I mean, well, we never locked the shower room door, and wasn't she surprised? So that's a useful thing when it becomes available in order to be able to get a whole lot of stamina and health. And hey, there's an envelope right here. This is the last one. It's the one that Roland leaves behind when you beat Clover Touch for the second time. So that's Peggy's last letter. Let's take a look at the last words that she's left behind. Or at least the last words for right now in Season 1.
David, I went back to our alma mater today to meet with our former coach. Do you remember that rumor about the field of clover that grew beneath the big shady tree by the practice field? Well, it's not a rumor anymore. Someone really did plant some clover there and spread it all over the hill, dotting it with little white flowers. I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing. When the coach came out to greet me, she saw me standing in the clover and laughed. She told me that because of the rumor, students often come out here to propose their romantic feelings under that big maple tree. So waiting under the maple implies you're waiting for someone to come and sweep you off your feet. I thought that was pretty romantic. Maybe we should return here someday, and we can recreate that sunny afternoon. At the time, you talked about miracles. You sounded like you were insane, waving your arms and trying to explain. I believe in miracles. I'm the luckiest lady alive. I wonder if the rumor will still exist when our daughter attends school. Love, little Peggy Oldman, January 7th, 2010.
Reminiscing about the days back at school when Peggy and David first got together. Suppose we should probably see if he has anything new to say here.
My symptoms are what's known as retrograde amnesia. It means I have holes in my memory prior to the incident. I'm kinda like a drunk who's chosen to just forget the bad stuff. I hate myself sometimes.
Anything new here, David?
The feeling of chasing fragments of memory into the past is like coming up to the bright surface from deep down in a dark ocean. Strange that diving can also feel like coming up for air. Unfortunately, it's something you really need to experience for yourself to understand.
I imagine that a lot of what David is going through is something that would be difficult to describe to someone else. But now that we've done all that, I believe we have now examined, well, almost everything in the apartment, aside from this. I think we've looked at pretty much everything. We've looked at all the scrapbooks, all the letters. We've seen all of the lunch scenes. I believe we've done everything we can do. I guess it's time to head back to the airplane and see how this all ends up. We've chased down what appears to be Derek Buchanan and Antonio Zapatero. At least we can assume that because we can hear Antonio yelling and begging for help. We also know that Philip Cheney is lurking around somewhere. At least we assume so because we know that he ran after them. We don't know where he went off to. And we also saw perhaps a familiar-looking hulking figure before. And Roland is still hanging out there. One more clue to find. And there is something of interest right in front of us. A familiar jacket.
He's fatally wounded. Marshall, you were planning this from the beginning, weren't you? Now I have all of the puzzle pieces.
Fucking with my fake eye, weren't you? Trying to take it while I was sleeping? Is that your ass or your head?
Man is far more than just his looks.
Don't tell me.
Oh, I've understood that.
Revenge?
That's it. That's what happened.
Spit it out. The name of your boss. Now!
That's some serious shit, man.
Derek Buchanan!
Well, I guess this is, if there is any time to be serious, it's now. Let's say that this is our fault.
Marshall, I'm sorry for making fun of your family. Now I understand everything. The reason you're so focused on real blood cases. And the reason your wife is so much younger than you in that picture. And even the identity of my attacker. You aren't the D I'm chasing. You've been following real blood cases in order to avenge your family. Your family was killed by a real blood user, perhaps. So you swore to wipe out everyone involved with real blood. Well, Marshall, have I got it right?
What the hell do you know?
More than you'd think. I lost my beloved wife, too. Marshall, listen. Just give up on the revenge. None of this will bring back your family. I, on the other hand, can change the past. Your family might not even have to die. So please, give me that evidence.
Don't fuck with me. Don't you fuck with me! Change the past? Who's gonna believe that bullshit? Do you have any idea how much I've suffered over these last 10 years? You're just some punk! You have no right to say anything about my family! I'm not giving him up, or the evidence. If you want it so bad, you'll have to take it by force!
Marshall, enough!
Marshall! AG Flight 117 to Boston. And a different flight to Washington, D.C. The other D, who was on board both of these flights. You're the one I should have been after. Codename Delta.
Philip Cheney!
Mr. David Young. a shame you didn't work it out sooner. Now, how may I help you? Die!
And that's the end of Dark Dreams Don't Die, Season 1. It turns out that Antonio Zapatero vanished from the plane, not because he actually vanished, but because Derek Buchanan abducted him after getting the fake eye and bringing him underneath the plane. For some reason, the fake eye is some kind of evidence. We don't know what kind of evidence it is, but Derek seems to think it's very valuable. David has not been able to get his hands on that fake eye, however. And then it turned out that Philip Cheney was not quite what he seemed. He was actually some kind of real blood powered monster that I guess was a double agent working with the DEA, but also working with the organization that makes Real Blood. It turns out that he was a D, standing for Delta, but does that mean he is the D? I don't know about that. I don't know if he's the D that we're looking for, or if he's just a D. Regardless, that's how this ends, with Delta and David having a face-off, and who knows who wins. It did look like Derek died. It looked like he was killed. Did not seem like he could survive that. Antonio was still alive, and it did seem that Olivia was still alive as well in that final face-off. So as far as what happens next, I guess we're gonna have to wait for D4 Season 2, whenever that comes, if that ever comes, to see how this all turns out. I mean, Season 2 would not be the finale either, we would assume, but at least we would see how this airplane storyline gets resolved.
Dr. Oldman.
That thing we discussed. I've arranged it, just like you wanted. Now will you be able to meet my expectations?
And just one more thing before D4 says goodbye. We finally get a good look at August Oldman, little Peggy's foster father, and that definitely was not the guy that we saw back at the beginning of the prologue. That was someone different altogether. But we can see our stats, we can see how he did. Still one observation that I wasn't able to find. But like I said, with that is the end of D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die Season 1, the end of Swery's new supernatural murder mystery. So what happens next? Well, I guess we're going to have to wait to see if Season 2 ever comes out. I mentioned back at the beginning of this that it seemed like it was in question whether or not it would actually happen. So I guess since we don't know for sure if it is going to happen, all we can really do is just go over the events of what we've seen in Season 1 and try to figure out what might be going on, or at least whatever we can figure out from what we've been given. Let's see. Actually, before we do that, we still do have one more Bad Detective segment to go through, don't we? So let's just take a look at that real quick.
Oh no.
Go on ahead. I'll be right behind you.
Don't let your memory slip through your fingers. Dear Mr. Young, aren't these memories precious to you? You're dropping them left and right. Is that the extent of your feelings for her? The value of one's life is measured by the strength of one's feelings.
Derek Buchanan! When I heard that the one behind Real Blood has a name starting with D, I thought maybe that was you. Now I understand everything. The reason you're so focused on Real Blood cases. And the reason your wife is so much younger than you in that picture. And even the identity of my attacker. You aren't the D I'm chasing.
Alright, and now that the final Bad Detective segment is over, I guess it's time to think about what we've seen, what we've learned, and what that might mean for the future. I guess I should put some kind of spoiler warning on here, but it's not really spoilers, because I don't know what's going to happen in D4. No one does. Except Swery, and then even in his case maybe not, because he doesn't know how many seasons he's going to get to make of the game. So I guess no one really knows what the future of D4 holds, but if you don't want to be exposed to speculation and details that I've noticed and other people have noticed that maybe you have not, maybe you don't want to watch this segment, maybe you want to be surprised when further seasons of D4 come out, and maybe watching some of this speculation maybe may ruin some of that for you. So, just in case, hey, maybe you don't want to watch this segment. But if you do, if you're interested in figuring out what might be going on from what we've been seeing so far, then hey, maybe this is the place for you. Okay, so if we're speculating on what the answers of D4 are, we have to have some kind of starting point. Where do we start discussing this? I guess what probably would be a good starting point would be figuring out what the timeline is of events in D4. So, throughout this LP, I've been reading text files for you from the game. Some of them important, some of them not. So I think at this point, just let me read one more text file. This one is not from the game, but this is my own file. I've tried to put together the timeline of D4. Let's see how this goes. We begin at February 24th, 2002, when Peggy Oldman, a cheerleader for the Boston Penguins, stopped a beating of Penguins player David Young by the opposing team. In the following month of March 24th, 2002, David and Peggy begin dating. In April 2002, just another month later, we have the first recorded case of a blood user. A Boston University student died during track and field practice. The following year, in January 2003, blood cell was discovered. It was a drug that induced hyperactivation in the brain. The next month, in February 2003, a series of bizarre deaths started, lasting week after week, with seemingly no connection between them. Then, on April 20th, 2003, David meets August Oldman for the first time. They don't get along. Then the next year, sometime in 2004, blood cell's popularity rapidly expanded, and it was immediately followed by new strains, one after the other. In the month of September 2004, the Special Narcotics Unit is formed in the BPD. 2 months later, November 9th, 2004, David and Forrest Kaysen are both promoted. Then, sometime in 2004, after the formation of the Special Narcotics Unit, the rise of the Blood series abruptly stalled for unknown reasons. Then the following year, sometime in 2005, the final results of the analysis of blood was that the composition of the drug and how it affected the body was a complete mystery. Then we have a jump to 4 years later, January 22nd, 2009. Peggy accepts David's marriage proposal. The following year, August 3rd, 2010, Peggy discovers that she is pregnant. Then a few months later, October 16th, 2010, Peggy feels that her disease is coming back. Then at some point in 2010, an anonymous tip was made to the Special Narcotics Unit concerning the organization behind Blood. David went undercover into the organization. Then, January 26th, 2011, Peggy is murdered in the bathroom of the Youngs' apartment. All of the blood in her body is somehow removed. David is shot in the head by an unknown assailant. Then, at some point in 2011, the 27th and final version of the Blood series appeared. It was given the name Real Blood. Then, May 12th, 2013, Flight 117 was struck by a bolt of lightning. Antonio Zapatero vanished, and Derek Buchanan is killed. Philip Cheney was revealed to be a superpowered assassin, Real Blood powered, knocked out Olivia Jones, and attacked David. Outcome unknown. Then, May 14th, 2013, the present day. Forrest gives Derek's badge to David, allowing David to dive to Flight 117. Alright, so that's the timeline as best I could put it together from the texts that we've been getting. Like I said, some of the texts seemed important, some of them seem not so important, but if we put them together like this, then maybe some details start to emerge. One detail that we can see is that there is a strange correlation with David and Peggy's relationship and the appearance of blood. The first death attributed to blood was only a month after the two of them started dating. And as we can see, in 2011, at some point after Peggy's death, Real Blood appeared, and that was the final strain. So does that mean anything? Well, at this point, we really can't figure out what that might mean. There's not enough details. Too much noise, as Special Agent York might have said. Anything else that we can figure out from this? Well, maybe one thing that we should take a look at is the night of the murder. As we've gone through D4, what details have we gotten about that night when Peggy was murdered and David was shot in the head? Well, we know that it was very cold that night with a record snowfall, thanks to Deborah's notes. We know that David was shot. What exactly happened to Peggy is unknown. All of the blood was drained from her body, but how is that possible? How could someone even do this? We really have not gotten any evidence or indication as to how that's possible. We know that the only thing David remembers from that night are Peggy's last words, or at least David thinks he remembers them. We know that Deborah was on duty as a nurse when David was admitted into the hospital. According to Deborah's notes, David was admitted at 2:54 a.m. on the 27th and is described as unstable, unsafe. And we know that the emergency surgery was administered by Dr. R.W. Of course, we have met a man who has those initials. We know that the first person on the scene was August Oldman. And we know that when August arrived, David wasn't there anymore. Apparently, only Peggy's body was there. David feels that someone took him to the ICU at some point in between these points in time. We know that the fingerprints of only David and Peggy were found at the crime scene. There was no indication of a third party. And we know that there were trace amounts of the compound found in real blood detected, though according to Kaysen's notes, Peggy's body was tested and she was found to not be a blood user. So okay, these seem to be the facts that we know about Peggy's last night. So is there anything that we can get from this? Well, one interesting thing is that August Oldman is the first person at the scene of the crime. Why is he at the scene of the crime? Did he come by that night? Did he knock on the door and then just bust his way in when no one answered? Maybe the door was left open, who knows? But why was it that August Oldman got there first? Even before, say, David woke up in the hospital, I mean, it sounds like August got there very shortly after the murder took place. So why was it that he was there? Any reasons that we can think of? Well, maybe we should now talk about August Oldman. Okay, we know August Oldman is Peggy's foster father. He's the man who raised her. We also know that Oldman is a doctor. He is interested in diseases of the blood, as we know by this book that he carries with him. He just carries it around, in case he has to reference it, I guess. But we can see that he's very interested in this subject. Now, who is August Oldman? He is apparently an important character, but one who has barely any screen time in D4 Season 1. However, there are some clues that can tell us exactly who he is. So, let's just get right down to it. Let's get down to the elephant in the room. And I think a bunch of you have probably already figured this out. August Oldman's face looks familiar. His eyes look familiar. He asks about changing the past. He used to play hockey when he was a young man. He has a watch with a shattered face. Okay, August Oldman is probably David Young. They are probably the same person. How is this possible? Well, we know that David's goal is to meet little Peggy at some point as he's diving. He doesn't just want to solve her murder. He wants to find her and stop her murder from even happening. He wants to change the past. So maybe he finds her at some point. Maybe he will dive and he will encounter little Peggy, but it will be little Peggy as a little girl. It'll be littler Peggy. And maybe David decides not to go back. Maybe he thinks now that he has found little Peggy, that he is going to stay with her, and even if it means becoming her foster father, and maybe then he will then live out the timeline to that point in January 2011 where she's murdered, and then maybe he intends to stop the murder from happening that way. Spend his life in pursuit of that goal. Maybe that's what happens. Of course, if that's the case, then why was it that he was unable to stop the murder? Did something prevent him from getting there on time? Maybe. But it would explain how August Oldman was the first person on the scene, if he was deliberately rushing to get there on the night of the murder. It would explain that. It would explain why he asks David if he believes that he can change the past. It would explain a lot of things. So maybe that's who August Oldman actually is. Of course, it doesn't explain what it is that he's doing now. He appears to have some kind of deal with Forrest Kaysen going on, but we have no idea what this is about. But it does appear that August Oldman is the old version of David Young. And he became this way because of his quest to change the past. Change the past is a phrase that is said frequently throughout D4. David wants to change the past. Forrest Kaysen feels that the past cannot be changed. August Oldman wonders if you can change the past. So what does this mean? We know David's goal is to stop Peggy from being murdered. He wants to change the past. But can that actually happen? Is that possible? Well, David feels that it can because of the baseball. Remember that he realized that the baseball became a memento specifically because of what David did on Flight 117. He got into a fight with Antonio Zapatero. Zapatero threw the baseball. David hit it back. It hit Zapatero in the face. Because of this specific action, it became a memento. David feels that it means that he did actually change the past. Is that actually what it means? Well, I guess we have to try to figure out what theory of time travel D4 might be using. In a time travel story, generally time travel will take one of two forms. One is where the timeline is liquid. It can be changed very easily. Someone will go back to the past, they'll do something, take some action, go back to the future, everything will be different, and the protagonist has to try to put the timeline back to the way it was, something like Back to the Future. Another version of time travel is the timeline is solid. It cannot be changed. There is only one timeline, and it is immutable. So even though you might go back to the past and take action in the past, nothing changes because in the timeline, you always went back to the past. There was never a version of the timeline where you didn't. So any actions you take were actions that you already took. Nothing can be changed. So an example of a movie that uses that is The Terminator. Well, the sequels got kind of weird with it, but whatever. The original Terminator went with that theory. So what kind of time travel is D4 using? Is it liquid or solid? Well, David certainly hopes it's liquid, but we're given some evidence to indicate that maybe it's solid. As far as the baseball goes, well, we don't know that it wasn't a memento beforehand. We are told what happens on Flight 117 before we actually see it, and what we're told is that Zapatero attacks Derek Buchanan, he gets into a fight, and vanishes. And then when we actually see this unfold, what happens? Zapatero fights Derek, he fights David, and then vanishes. So nothing really changed, did it? I mean, this seems like the account that Forrest Kaysen gives to us. So did David actually change anything by diving to the past? It doesn't seem like it. So maybe the baseball was already a memento, it's just that David didn't find it until after he had already experienced the fight with Antonio. There's some other evidence that would indicate that the timeline is solid. For example, Derek Buchanan. When David first meets him, Derek already met him before. He says, "What are you doing here? Didn't I say I'd kill you if I saw you again?" And David doesn't know what Derek is referring to. We find out later, when David meets Derek for the second time, in the past, but this is the first time that Derek has met David. Derek doesn't know who David is. So, because the first time David meets Derek, Derek has already met him, which means that second encounter has already happened in the timeline. Even though David has not experienced it, he has no memory of it because he has not dove back to that period of time yet. It has happened. Derek remembers it. The fact that David hasn't gone back there yet doesn't matter. The same thing with Philip Cheney. Philip, when we first meet him, he also remembers David because he met him on the first flight, which David has yet to go to. So, it seems that the timeline might be solid, because the events of Derek and Philip first meeting David, according to them, they already happened, even though David has not done that yet. So can the past be changed? Up until the end of the events of the first season, I don't think we've seen any indication that the past can be changed. We know that the outcome of Flight 117 is that Zapatero vanishes. Derek Buchanan is killed. By the end of the first season, yep, Buchanan is killed. Zapatero, he's been taken down below decks and no one knows where he is. That would count as vanishing. Has anything changed? So far, nothing has changed. So far, the past cannot be changed. So if that's the case, is David Young's quest all in vain? Will he never be able to change the past? Well, if it's true that August Oldman is David Young, it does seem that David's quest is heading for tragedy. And perhaps there is one person who knows that. Okay, Amanda. Amanda is a woman who appears to be David's cat. We don't know how it is that Amanda is a human being, or if she is even a human being, or is that just what David sees? Or does Forrest Kaysen see her as a human being as well? We don't know, and we're really not given any indication in Season 1 as to what Amanda's nature is. All we know is that she is most likely David and Peggy's cat, who now appears to be a human being for some reason. What's Amanda's role in this? Well, I notice a lot of people, when they play D4, they see her as being sort of the comedy relief, as being sort of the anime Catgirl character, and I think that kind of takes away from potential importance that Amanda has in the story. A lot of people seem to forget this scene.
Don't give me that look, Amanda. I'm just trying to give him a reason to live.
Do you remember that scene? It takes place after Forrest Kaysen gives David Derek's badge, so David can dive to the past Flight 117. Amanda doesn't like that. She seems quite angry at Forrest for doing that, and Forrest says, "Don't get mad at me, I'm just giving David a reason to live." So Forrest, even though he doesn't think David can change the past, he knows it's important for David to have a reason to live. He's trying to give David a purpose, and he feels that this is worthwhile, but Amanda clearly disagrees. Amanda does not seem to like the fact that David is diving, and there's something else that we've seen that reinforces that. Remember when Amanda was keeping the baseball away from David? And, you know, a lot of people just interpreted that as she's a cat, and she is trying to keep the ball for herself. Maybe that's not the reason, though. It just so happens that the ball is a memento. Is she just keeping a random baseball away from David, or is she keeping it away from David because it is a memento and she does not want him to use it to dive? Does she have a purpose herself? Does Amanda have a mission? Perhaps her mission is to try to save David from ruining his life in pursuit of a goal that cannot be obtained. She's angry when Forrest gives him the badge. She tries to keep the baseball away from David. Maybe she's trying to stop David from doing this. It could be. We also know that Amanda, in cat form, helps him out by selling him goods and services when he's diving. So she is trying to help him in terms of maintaining his well-being. Roland Walken confirms this. The well-being of Amanda reflects on the well-being of David. So Amanda appears to be David's friend, even though David might not be aware of what it is she's doing. As far as perhaps diving not being the best course of action for David, this is also reinforced by the vision of Peggy that he has. Remember, in this vision, Peggy says that she belongs to the past. David must accept the past. He must let go of the past. David doesn't want to do this. Now, in this scene, I noticed that people interpret it as Peggy kind of turning monstrous because her voice deepens. The music becomes ominous. David wakes up screaming. But maybe that's a wrong interpretation. Maybe this is the correct thing for David to hear, that David needs to let go of his quest. The past can't be changed. Peggy belongs to the past. David needs to let go and move on with his life, instead of dedicating his life to trying to change the past, which cannot happen. Is that what's going on here? Maybe, but then again, we don't actually know what the nature of Peggy is here. Is this actually Peggy? Is it a ghost? Is this just a delusion of David's? Well, we don't know. but it seems that she might be giving him good advice. Speaking of little Peggy, there is one other mystery about her that never really gets addressed during D4 Season 1. Her two wonderful dads. We know that August Oldman is her foster father, and this is the father that David acknowledges. He calls August Oldman her father. But there's a second dad, isn't there? This guy. We see him at the beginning of the prologue. Who is this guy? Who is this dad? He's dressed kind of like August Oldman. He has white hair like August Oldman. But this isn't August Oldman. It's someone else entirely. Littler Peggy identifies the man as her father. But who is he? We know that Littler Peggy says that she was saved from the broken ice by her two dads. But we only see the one dad there during the prologue. We don't see August Oldman around anywhere. So who is this man? I would assume perhaps Peggy's biological father, if August Oldman is a foster father. But why is the biological father here, and the foster father is not? Perhaps one idea could be that maybe, as she was being saved from the broken ice, maybe this is where David Young appears. Maybe this is where he dives into the past. And maybe this is the point where he saves Littler Peggy from the broken ice. And then maybe the first dad, maybe he dies in the attempt. This is just complete speculation, but it would explain how David Young could become Peggy's foster father, adopting her after her original father was killed. Then again, Peggy never actually mentions this during the scene at the beginning of episode 2, but we don't actually know how real that scene is. Does it actually happen? Is it just a delusion? We don't know. But maybe this could be how things go. In any case, we really don't have enough evidence to figure out what's going on there. This is just complete speculation. Let's change subjects here and talk about Real Blood. What do we know about it? It's a drug that is a powder and red in color. It has effects on the body that science cannot explain. It appears to have supernatural properties and can give you godlike powers. I guess at this point we have to bring up Deadly Premonition. Now, before we talk about that, I don't think Deadly Premonition and D4 will be connected, just because of who owns the games. Access Games made both, of course. They're both directed by Swery, but D4 is a Microsoft-published game. Deadly Premonition is not, so I don't think there could be a direct connection, but let's talk about Deadly Premonition. In Deadly Premonition, of course, the plotline revolves around red seeds. That is some kind of supernatural drug that can give you supernatural powers. And we know at one point that Becky and Quint were grinding up these seeds into a red powder, and Quint was transporting this red powder out of the town to sell it elsewhere. We don't know where he was going to sell this. We don't know how long he was doing it. But we do know that he was selling red powder to some people outside of the town. York at the time does not do anything about it, because he doesn't know what the red powder is. He doesn't know if it's a drug or what it is. It's not an illegal substance, because it's not even a known substance. So he uses this information to press Quint to try to get some information from him, but he doesn't actually do anything about the red powder. Could the red powder be what becomes real blood? I mean, there are certainly similarities. We do know that the source of real blood is unknown. Who knows where it comes from? Who knows how it works? We know that in Deadly Premonition, the FBI labs have analyzed the red seeds, and they can't figure it out. They can't make heads or tails of it. They don't know what it is or how it works. Same thing with real blood. So there do seem to actually be connections between the two games. I'm sure that's deliberate on the part of Swery, but I kinda doubt there will be a real connection there, explicitly stated, just because of who owns the two games. Of course, there are other connections as well, such as this guy, Forrest Kaysen. Now, does Forrest Kaysen have any relation to the Forrest Kaysen in Deadly Premonition? Well, in the beginning of Deadly Premonition, we do see this chessboard with little Forrest Kaysens in different clothes all over the board. I don't know if there would be a direct connection there. whether or not this Forrest Kaysen is actually the same person as this Forrest Kaysen, or if this is just a reference, and maybe Swery is making the reference to make us suspect Forrest Kaysen in D4, knowing that pretty much everyone who plays this game would have already played Deadly Premonition. That could be the case, but still, it is a fun little connection to make. It's not the only connection between D4 and a previous Swery game. We have played a previous Swery game before that featured a man that had a bullet wound in his head. Swery does seem to like that. Now, if there is no Deadly Premonition connection, it seems that the primary suspect as to who is the source of real blood is probably August Oldman. We know that he is fascinated with blood. However, we can probably assume that this fascination has to do with trying to find a cure for Peggy's disease. We don't actually know anything about Peggy's disease, not much is talked about it, other than it probably has something to do with blood. And of course, all of the blood was drained from her body after she was killed. Aside from that, we really don't know anything about this disease, but maybe August Oldman was researching a cure. That would especially make sense if he is David Young, and he knew that Peggy would get this disease, for him to dedicate his life to research a cure for it. And we do know that blood, the drug, has curative properties. We did read Kaysen's file that says that it was able to cure cancer, so possibly this is a cure that August Oldman developed that eventually turned into real blood. Could be a possibility. Again, this is just speculation, and there really isn't any other evidence in the game to support this, but this does seem to be the most likely working theory. However, one thing that might contradict this is that Peggy's murder and David's attack is attributed to be retribution by the organization behind Real Blood. If August Oldman is indeed the one behind Real Blood, then this would not make any sense. We have to assume that the organization behind Real Blood is malevolent and would want to assassinate David Young and little Peggy for David's investigation into the organization, but if it is August Oldman who heads the organization, then why would they do that? So, maybe something there that contradicts the idea that August Oldman is the creator of Real Blood. Of course, we can't say for sure. Then again, if August Oldman is the creator of Real Blood, it might make sense for why people refer to him as D. D for David? I mean, we assume that maybe D could stand for David because of David Young, but maybe it actually stands for David because August Oldman is David. Maybe that's the twist. Again, not enough information here to determine that for sure. Forrest Kaysen is a man with many secrets. Even if we assume that he's not the Deadly Premonition Kaysen, and that he's just who he appears to be, that being a detective working for the Boston Police Department, he still has a bunch of stuff that he is keeping hidden from David. We know that Kaysen is still part of the BPD, he's still part of the Special Narcotics Unit, but we don't know exactly what it is that he is currently investigating. We know that according to Kaysen's final file, that the main purpose of the Special Narcotics Unit was to investigate Real Blood, and they weren't making much headway until sometime in 2010 when they were given an anonymous tip about the organization behind Blood, and David went undercover into that organization. Now, a weird thing, this never gets mentioned during the game. The only time we actually hear this is in Kaysen's report number 6. So why is that? We know that David and Kaysen have talked about Real Blood. They've talked about how the people who distribute Real Blood, it's a complete mystery, no one knows who's behind it. But apparently there was a point where they got a tip about the organization behind Real Blood, and David went undercover. David never mentions this. Now, I assume that he remembers that he did this, because apparently the memory loss that he has only extends to the night of the murder. Or at least, I don't remember him mentioning that it extended beyond that. So does David remember or not remember his time when he went undercover into this organization? If he does, why does he never actually mention that? If he doesn't, why doesn't Kaysen actually mention that? So this is a strange thing, as it seems that both of these characters know something about the organization that distributes real blood, but they never actually mention it. We know that Kaysen is investigating something related to real blood, though David doesn't know exactly what. We know that as part of David's investigation, David's apartment is part of it, also August Oldman's facility, and the house that I would assume August Oldman owns. It's the place that little Peggy grew up in. He's investigating these places. So what does this have to do with real blood? Well, if we're assuming that August Oldman is the one who created real blood, it would explain that. It would explain why Forrest Kaysen is investigating August Oldman. It doesn't really explain what it is that Kaysen is doing with August Oldman. What sort of deal do they have? It really doesn't explain that. It also doesn't really indicate whether or not Kaysen has ulterior motives for helping David out with his dives. So, not a lot of information there, but it is worth bringing up just to mention that apparently David and Kaysen do know something about this organization, though I don't know if David remembers that he knows. Kaysen might, but if he does, he hasn't said anything about it. Roland Walken is a mysterious man meant to evoke memories of the giant from Twin Peaks. He's able to appear anywhere and any when he wants, or at least it seems so. He knows who David is, he knows that David is diving into the past, and appears to know the answers to all of David's questions. He just is reluctant to actually give those answers. But who is Roland Walken? Well, we can figure that Roland Walken was the doctor who operated on David the night he was shot. We don't know if this Roland is the same man, or maybe this is some kind of mental construct that David has created based on vague memories of that doctor. Who knows if this is actually a human being at all? Some people have thought that perhaps the reason Roland Walken is so tall is because David is remembering the doctor, Roland Walken, hunching over him as he operates. Maybe this is the perspective that David had of that doctor, and that's why he sees this Roland Walken in this way. We really can't say. I mean, I think it's kind of unlikely that this is the actual doctor. It does seem likely that this is someone or something else that is taking on this form, a form that David has sort of vaguely in his memories. Now, Roland seems to know the answers to all of David's mysteries. He seems to know everything. However, he doesn't want to say everything. He tells David that you can't expect me to do your job for you. He wants David to solve the mysteries on his own. He will give him some help, such as mentioning that looking is not enough, you must also observe. Or leaving letters in David's apartment from Peggy, so David will remember the events that Peggy is writing about. He is trying to help him, but he does feel that it's important that David solve this himself. This seems to be the kind of thing where the answer to the mystery is not the most important thing, but the journey to get there is. Perhaps whatever the answer to this is, it's not something that David would be able to accept right now, but only going through the journey and figuring this out himself will he be able to accept the true answer. So what do you suppose that means? That whatever the answer is, it's something that David will not be able to accept right now, but only when he has figured everything out himself, only when he has gathered all of the facts, and only when he has resolved the mystery on his own will he be able to accept the answer. Well, if the answer has something to do with David being August Oldman, I can see why Roland Walken would think that David needs to figure this out on his own. That seems like something that if Roland just told him, David would have a tough time believing that. Oh, of course, I am my late wife's foster father. Why didn't I think of that? No, that doesn't seem like something that David would be capable of accepting right now. So David is going through the investigation to figure this out on his own, even though Roland seems to already know what the answer is going to be. But it's important that David go through the journey on his own. now that we've been talking about this for a bit, how about we revisit the night of the murder and try to speculate on what might have happened exactly? We know what the facts are, now let's go with the speculation. From Deadly Premonition, we know that Swery does like to give you some important hints right in front of your face, but make them seem unimportant. So let's go with that. Let's use that to have a working theory here, that Peggy shot David. This is one of the first things we see in the game. We see a vision of Peggy pointing the gun at David. I would assume that's David's own gun. Now, that actually would match up with the proof that we know of. We know that there were only the fingerprints of David and Peggy found at the scene. There was no third party. So it would make sense in that respect. It would also make sense because we know that the bullet is still lodged in David's skull. It was never removed, and that means that there could have been no ballistics test on that bullet. So the gun that it came out of is unknown. Perhaps if a ballistics test was done, maybe it would be found that it was shot from David's gun. So maybe we can assume that this is what happened. Why would Peggy do this? Well, there's an audio clip that we hear at the beginning of each episode. Let's listen to that right now.
David.
This is a story of a man with a very strange fate.
Hey, look. It's like I've grown wings.
So we hear that at the beginning of every episode. Does it actually mean something? Peggy says it's like she has wings and then a gunshot. Maybe that's the actual audio from the night of the murder. Maybe that's what Peggy says before she shoots David in the head. But what does it even mean? We really can't say, but maybe it indicates that Peggy is not in her right state of mind. Maybe something has happened to her, and it leads to her shooting David. I mean, this is really speculation. We really have nothing here to make that connection. Only that we've been hearing this one clip at the beginning of every episode, so maybe it's important. We know that if Peggy was not in her right state of mind, it doesn't have to do with her being on blood, because Kaysen says that the BPD tests reported negative on blood use. However, David's own case file does say that there were materials found that are also found in real blood. So that's interesting. Maybe it falls into the theory that some people have that real blood was made out of Peggy's blood. That would fall in line with the timeline that real blood appeared sometime after the murder of Peggy. It would also fall in line with why Peggy's blood was removed from her body, because her blood is what was used to create real blood. It might also match up to why August Oldman was first on the scene. Now notice something, August Oldman was on the scene before the police were, but only the fingerprints of David and Peggy were found. Well, that would match up if August Oldman is indeed David Young. The police would have only have found David's fingerprints. When August gets there, maybe Peggy still has her blood. Maybe August Oldman is the one who drained her blood. And if August Oldman is the one behind real blood, then maybe he used it to create the drug. Why would he do this, though? If everything he's doing is for the purpose of saving little Peggy, and it would make sense that that's the case if he is David Young, why would he drain Peggy's blood? Why would he make real blood? What would be his purpose in doing this? We still don't know. A lot about August Oldman that we don't know. What he's doing, why he's making a deal with Kaysen, what that's about, we don't know. But maybe this could work as a working theory. What happened on the night of the murder, Peggy and David were in the bathroom. Something happened to cause Peggy to lose her mind. She shot David. Or rather, I shouldn't assume that maybe Peggy went nuts. Maybe she was sane. Maybe there was actually a good reason for Peggy to shoot David. That's also another possibility. David doesn't remember anything from that night, so maybe there was actually a very good reason to shoot him. We don't know. So okay, let's remove that part of it. Let's say David and Peggy are in the bathroom. Peggy somehow has David's gun. Peggy shoots David in the head. Peggy is incapacitated somehow herself. We see her in David's memory on the bathroom floor being held by David. What happened to Peggy? Was she shot as well, or did something supernatural happen to her? We don't know. She says, "Look for D," or at least that's what David remembers. Maybe that's not quite right? We do see her sort of gasping for air before she says, "Look for D." Some people have assumed that maybe what she actually said was, "Don't look for D." It's hard to say. Then after that, somehow David ends up in the ICU. August Oldman arrives on the scene. He says David wasn't there. Maybe he was. Maybe August Oldman was the one who took David to the hospital. And then maybe August Oldman comes back and calls the cops. And then maybe before he does that, maybe August Oldman somehow drains the blood from little Peggy's body, and then he calls the cops. When the cops come and they investigate the scene, they only find the fingerprints of David Young and Peggy Young because August Oldman's fingerprints are David Young's fingerprints. And maybe that's what happened the night of the murder, and still a lot that is not known. Still too much noise. We can't get an accurate premonition of this. No matter how hard I hold my fingers up to the side of my head, it's not coming through. But this seems to be the best I can think of with what information we have. Well, I guess that's it. I guess that's all the speculation I can come up with the information that we have. Hopefully, Season 2 will come out, though up to this point, there has been no word from Swery on whether or not Season 2 will actually happen. It's as just as much a mystery now as it was when I started this LP. Though, the chances of a PC version coming out seem very good. Swery was showing a PC version of the game. He has been talking about it on Twitter, and you have to think that he wouldn't be doing that if a PC version wasn't going to happen. So hopefully, there will be a PC version coming out, and if there was, that's really the smart decision. That is where this game is gonna make its money. So hopefully that's gonna happen, and if it does, hopefully it's enough to fund Season 2. And further seasons. I want D4 to go on for as long as it can, for as long as Swery wants it to go on. So hopefully we'll get more episodes in the future, and we'll get more information to this mystery. For right now, though, I suppose it's time to say goodbye. Say goodbye for right now. Say goodbye to D4 Season 1, because I don't think there's really anything else to talk about right now. Or, hold on a second, there still is one more thing that I meant to show you. Yeah, it's that little doll of Roland right here. I haven't tried picking it up, but like I mentioned, when we do, we get to play Clover Touch with no restrictions. It gets kind of difficult. You know, if you want to test your skills against this game, see just how far you can go. Well, like I was saying, not too much more to say about D4 at this point, D4 Season 1. We can only hope that Season 2 will be coming out at some point. Though I imagine we can expect to see the PC port of Season 1 before that happens. It's a difficult thing, trying to release an episodic game where there's no episodic schedule. You think about a company that was able to have success with the episodic model, someone like Telltale, when they did The Walking Dead Season 1. A lot of their success, I think, at least I attribute it to that they were able to keep more or less a schedule, though with a bunch of their other games they haven't been able to do that so well. But at least you know that something is in the works, something is being made. With D4, it's a bit more difficult than that, isn't it? Oh, my hand got big. My hand got real big, because I got enough points, make my hand big. That's what happens. You get enough clovers, it makes your hand really big. Anyway, my next bonus went up to 300. So every time I meet that point requirement right there. My hand will get big, and we'll get a lot of colors and get clovers that are worth a lot of points. If I can survive for that long, because look, they're starting to get fast, and there's starting to be more of them. It's at this point that the power-ups, like the snowflake and the pink flower, will come in a lot more handy to try to catch all of... Oh, okay, look. Pink... Okay, here we go. Yep, pink flower was very, very useful right there. So like I was saying, doing an episodic mystery game with no kind of schedule, not knowing when the next one's going to come out, I mean, that's not easy. That's difficult. That's a hard sell. Especially saying that you're not sure if it's going to come out, even. And, you know, that kind of also hurts the mystery of it, too, because I was going over all of the things that we know about Season 1, and, you know, there's stuff in there that I would not have caught if, you know, this was just a game that I was playing from beginning to end, like with Deadly Premonition. I would not have thought of the whole August Oldman being David Young thing at all. That would not even have occurred to me, probably, if I was playing this straight through. It's only because we have this pause before the next season could come out that, you know, I would have had enough time to really think about that. And, you know, likewise, the twists in Deadly Premonition probably would have been easier to catch if it was an episodic game as well that was released in seasons, not released all at the same time. So, I mean, yeah, it seems rough to have to release a mystery game in that way. You try to add foreshadowing, you try to add clues and evidence, as a good mystery should. But then you add too much, you make it too obvious, and it becomes so easy for people to pick that stuff up before, you know, you get to resolve that mystery. And now the clovers are getting really small. Oh my goodness, look how small these clovers are getting. If I lose even one of them, it's all over. Roland Walken looks on, impassive, wondering if David cares enough to grab all of little Peggy's memories. Will he let any of them slip away, slip through his fingers? Oh man, there's so many and they're so small. And no, I couldn't do it. Couldn't get up to 1700. So yeah, that's the unrestricted Clover Touch. We can just practice that anytime we want, if we want to get some quick credits like that, as well if we want to check out the high scores. I believe that's we already saw that one. Yeah, okay. That was that one Peggy memory we just saw. Clover Touch score. Let's see, at the time of this recording. Who is on number... Okay, Nuhar 136, score 2,982. So I'm not even close to that. Not even halfway. I wonder how fast and intense it gets at that point. And how fast and intense this mystery might become once we get new seasons, if we get new seasons. Well, I guess that's it. I guess that's really everything we can look at in D4 Season 1, while we hope that the next one comes out, and while we wait intently. And while we wait intently, let's just fix this picture on the wall. Yep, Teddy and David. This is when the narcotics unit was started. Right, so I really hope that, you know, even though I was giving all the speculation and all this guessing, I kind of hope that I'm wrong about a lot of it, because I want to be surprised, you know? I don't want it to turn out that I, you know, figured it out or anything. Oh, David. He can't even change the present, let alone the past. And I guess as far as the there being a satisfactory outcome to the mystery, I guess the main thing I'm just hoping for is that there is a good explanation for what Look for D meant. If that is an actual initial for someone's name, it seems a little silly, because why wouldn't Peggy have just said the name? But anyway, that's it for D4, Season 1. While we wait for news of Season 2, while we wait for news of a PC port of Season 1, Whenever Season 2 comes out, we'll continue on with this LP. So I guess we can't say that the LP is done. We can't say it's over. We can just say it's postponed for now, because the rest of this game doesn't exist yet. And when it does, well, we'll be back, continuing on where we left off. In the meantime...
Hey!